I totally agree with what everybody has been saying, but I just want to talk about the one that I compared it to, which was La Guerra. One quote in particular that caught my attention was, it says, "In this country, lesbianism is a poverty, as is being brown, as is being a woman, as is being just plain poor. The danger lies in ranking the oppressions." And this piece in particular is, I think, very powerful, because not only was she oppressed just for being a woman, but she was oppressed for being a minority as well, and because she had a different sexual orientation, being homosexual. And when the piece says the danger lies in ranking the oppression, I brought that back to Pedagogy of the Oppressed, because it talks about false generosity, and I thought that tied into it as well, because like, you're not supposed to, I don't think you should try to sugarcoat being oppressed. You know, I think that you should just go ahead and try to fix the problem with true generosity, and not trying to rank, well, you're oppressed because you're a lesbian, or you're oppressed because you're brown, or try to bring each other down, you know what I'm saying? Because there's oppression within oppressed people. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's what I tied it into with my piece.
I think, to add on to that, a problem with fixing it is that a lot of people are not aware of it, because I know before this class, like, I never really just heard nothing like this, you know, that was as deep as these stories are. So a lot of people may not be aware of their oppression.
One of the quotes that was in the Pedagogy of the Oppressed, it said, "Only power that springs from the weakness of the oppressed will be sufficiently strong to free both." And I thought that was very powerful, because it's basically saying that, it's kind of ties into that quote when it says you're as strong as your weakest link type thing. So like, if people's mind is continually to be oppressed, you can't even help yourself. Like, you can't help anybody before you help yourself. And if you're oppressed, you're helping somebody else that's oppressed, is like double negative. Like, you can't even help anybody.
Speaking of oppressed, as far as you knowing you being oppressed and the oppressed not helping the oppressed, when you really look at it in the technical term of being oppressed, like, us African Americans are oppressed. You may not see, like, you may say, oh, we have opportunities and everything else, we got a black president. When it comes down to it, we're still the minority, and we're still oppressed as far as job opportunities, as far as salary, as far as even the way we're treated. So for you to say, or for, I guess, the implication to be the oppressed can't help the oppressed, I think that it really comes down to some more specifics, because even though we are oppressed, like, I don't even know the word, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say we're used to it or we're blatantly living in it now, but it's like right now it's getting better, but we're always going to be oppressed just because of the way society is right now. And like, even when it comes back to this white privilege and male privileges, especially black females, because we're not male and we're not white, so it's like double oppression. So you just kind of make the best of it and just, I don't know, make the best of it.
So are you saying that, like, things can't change?
I'm saying things can change, but we're still going to be oppressed no matter what, just because we are the minority, and just because that's how society is.
So then things
You mean we're going to be treated like we're oppressed, or we're going to be
But then what's the
oppressed
difference?
within ourselves?
Okay, so if you're treated as you're oppressed, does that make you oppressed? If people are treating you that way, so why would they treat you that way?
You're letting people treat you like you're oppressed because you feel that you are oppressed. That's the only way that happens.
Yeah.
So you have to believe in yourself for you to be oppressed.
Even believing that you're not oppressed, people can still like treat you oppressed, especially when it comes to race.
And
like,
then that's when
we can be as confident as we want to in our own race, but if they don't see that, they're still going to treat us that way. And after a while, with people who are more weak-minded, as strong as they are, if you keep getting that mentally in your head, it's going to start taking a wear on you as oppressed. So I guess it comes down to like, what is oppressed? Is it when you're treated that way, or when you actually act that way? Because they're not the same thing.
That tied into my article. I found an actual quote from the Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and it says, "The oppressed, having internalized the image of the oppressor and adopted his guidelines, are fearful of freedom. Freedom will require them to eject this image and replace it with autonomy and responsibility. Freedom is required by conquest and not a gift." And in my article, Gangsta Rap in American Culture, I did it with another article, and it's about like black women and how gangsta rap, displays them. And it says, it is doubly wounding for black women who are already beset by attacks from the outside their communities to feel the thrust of musical daggers in their dignity from within. How painful it is for black women, many of whom have fought for black pride, and to hear the chord of disdain carried in the angry epithet bitch. And so that kind of ties into like how they're being oppressed. And then also in the Pedagogy of the Oppressed, it talks about how money is the measure of all things and profit a primary goal for the oppressor, what is worthwhile is to have. And so that ties in because in the article it talks about how at the best like gangsta rap was music that draws attention to the complex dimensions of the ghetto life ignored by many Americans, but now it's kind of gone into how record companies just trying to make money out of it, so money is their goal.
I think what you were saying about being oppressed and how we're always going to be oppressed, I think the thing with that is that many people are scared because they feel like, okay, they feel like they need the oppressors in a way. They need them, or else they wouldn't feel oppressed in the first place if they didn't feel like they needed them. So they feel like if they try to break free from the oppressors, things are only going to get worse for them. So they're scared to actually try to break free from the oppressors. And then back to what she just said, it's a conquest, it's not a gift, just like anything else. Like if you want to, if you don't want to feel oppressed, you have to work for that, and you have to, like, nobody's going to say, okay, great, you're not oppressed anymore. It's not a gift, you have to work for it.
And in relation to that, this is kind of like paralleling it to like some recent incidents. Like when violent incidents happen on campus, I've heard many people say, it's this public safety, these ghetto public safety. If we had white public safety, then they come in here and they regulate. I've heard that a lot before. And it's like, that even comes down to the oppressor, because if we did have all white public safety coming in here regulating, putting things in order, then it'd be like, oh, why are they coming in here doing all this HBCU? So it's like, okay, y'all don't want our public safety because y'all don't have to put enough trust in them as our own race. Y'all want the white public safety, but when it comes down to it, they're the oppressor. And if they come in here regulating, the first time somebody get hit with a billy club or somebody get tased, even though half the time like these people like just don't know how to act, then it'd be like, oh, well, they coming in here doing this to our black students. So it's like, I see what you're saying as far as needing the oppressor, because sometimes we don't have enough confidence in our own race to handle certain situations.
Right. Okay, well, speaking about race, Rachel, I know you had light skin and dark skin. So, what do you have to say about that article that relates to this race with being oppressed and being oppressed?
Well, when looking at Pedagogy of the Oppressed, the main item that jumps out at me is when they said the very structure of their thought has been conditioned by the contradictions of the concrete, existential situation by which they were shaped. And when looking at the dark of light of it, from years, going down from slavery, it's always been kind of a competition, who's better than who, when it comes to light and dark. And so I feel like that's one of the main things that holds the black community back as a people, is the competition between itself. You know how they say black on black crime. It's just like we have Leanne here.
Right.
But, oh, I don't like her because she thinks she's all that, because she's light-skinned, and she probably thinks she could get all the jobs, the men. But when she's going through her own thing, we're still the same. The color doesn't change anything, and I just feel like that really oppresses us as a people today. And if we open up our minds and see that, I think we could really get further. And that's how I feel when it compares with it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back to the Georgianne Nation 09 discussion. We had some delegates who were not here physically for the discussion, so they're going to talk to us via satellite.
Hi, I'm Cedar Brack, another delegate from Georgianne Nation, and my comparison is comparing Black Athena with Pedagogy of the Oppressed. What I got from both stories is that, as in Pedagogy of the Oppressed, it's similar to Black Athena in many ways. For example, in Black Athena, it is discussed how the Africans were stripped of their ideas and inventions in medical fields, technology, and in other educational fields. Because the Europeans, who can be seen as the oppressors, have claimed it their own.